What's up, guys? It's your bro Mega Pro, and today I'm gonna be reacting to SCP stories, starting with SCP 682, the hard to destroy reptile. So let's begin, shall we?
May 14th, 1883.
Whoa, a long time ago.
I received a most curious missive in the post this morning.
Oh, you did?
It has been 4 months since I returned to England, having nearly lost my life in endeavoring to become the first man to reach the summit of the foreboding and deadly Mount Everest.
Huh.
I have spent the time since in research and recovery here in London, nursing my wounds and documenting my memoirs of the harrowing trip up the mountain and my nearly fatal encounter with the creature I found there, and have not planned to embark again for distant shores until after summer has passed.
Okay, so the way he said it, it makes me think, what creature are you talking about? I do not see a creature. This is wasting fake energy. Okay, I'm gonna be serious. Let's continue.
That has changed, I fear, as the result of today's letter.
To Lord Theodore Thomas Blackwood, CBE. Colonel Joseph Deafante, Armée de Terre of the Republic of France, does hereby cordially invite you to participate in the hunt of a great and terrible creature that threatens the lives of thousands.
Woo.
The Tarrasque, a creature great and terrifying, of late believed to be legend, has risen and threatens the security of the land of Provence and France itself. Colonel Deafante has been authorized by the President of the Republic to pay a sum of 5 million English pounds to the man or men who shall slay this infamous beast.
I immediately dashed.
Just to be honest with you guys, to make you think I don't know about this SCP, but you can never kill 682. It's impossible.
Off in acceptance and sent it out with the afternoon post.
You're not
I've always
gonna
been a
kill
firm
it.
believer in the proposition that even in the most preposterous of myths, there lies a kernel of truth.
Yeah, you
Whether an ancient behemoth that breathed fire was bringing ruination to the south of France, I knew not. But I knew that the army and the president themselves were concerned enough to seek out a man such as myself, and were willing to offer a bounty that would finance a score of proper expeditions for the killing of a single beast.
Oh, really?
May 20th, 1883.
And how are you
We
gonna
disembarked in Avignon. Mr. Roosevelt and I spent many hours sharing our tales of adventure. I find in him a true intellectual who understands what it means to be a naturalist. Mr. Dukov I found more difficult to talk to. He is a private man who prefers the company of his books and his studies to that of his fellows. I did my best to avoid speaking to Mr. Harris during the trip. I intend during our expedition to be no less than a gentleman, but the man leaves a sour taste in my mouth. May 21st, 1883. Avignon itself looked like a city at war. Soldiers patrolling the streets, barricades at the edge of town. Not far outside the city, we reached the edge of the quarantine zone. Soldiers had been hard at work digging trenches, erecting fortifications. The young men keeping watch looked battle-scarred, as though they had seen indescribable horror. I asked on passing if any of them had yet seen the Tarrasque. Only a few, the scouts and lookouts, had seen it from a distance, I was told, for nobody who had engaged the beast at close range was still alive. We set up camp on the edge of the dead town. Mr. Harris returned by evening and informed us he had spotted the Tarrasque to the southwest, near the village of Bellegarde, in the act of destroying a farmhouse. Its route, he said, had not been difficult to trace, for a swath of barren land seemed to lay a trail. Even the grass itself was not safe from the Tarrasque wrath. Tomorrow we will follow the trail and engage the beast. May 22nd, 1883.
I'm just gonna say their plan is gonna be horrible. I mean, how are you gonna kill an immortal beast?
Shortly after midday, we spotted the creature in the distance. It was stationary, seeming to nap in the afternoon sun. It was a massive thing, longer than a whale and taller than a giraffe, and it looked to outweigh either. Its scales glistened in the sun, and its teeth, massive and shining, were bared as it rested among the chaos it had wrought. Had it wings, I would have called it a dragon.
It's not a dragon.
With our weapons in tow, we stealthily approached the beast to a range of less than 30 meters. We drew straws, and it was agreed I would take the first shot at the abomination. Steadying my gun against the fence, I took careful aim for the sleeping Tarrasque's head. I held my breath, made my final adjustment, and fired.
So you want to be a hero?
We watched with delight as the top of the Tarrasque's head was shorn clean off. The beast slumped to the ground, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Harris let out a cheer, and the dead beast came to life. Mr. Roosevelt and Mr. Harris barely had time to fire around.
See? This guy is stupid. You can never kill it. Those dumb sons of bitches.
At the beast before we were forced to scatter. We watched in horror as the wounds it took sealed themselves within seconds. We were able to elude the Goliath, and by nightfall we were among the soldiers at the barricade, our prides injured, but otherwise in good health. May 28th, 1883.
Oh, so they survived.
The attempt to attack the Tarrasque on the 23rd proved no more successful than the first. We have come to a conclusion that the beast cannot be killed simply by gunshot, or electrification, or setting it aflame, for the rate at which it heals its injuries is so great, and its tolerance for pain and mutilation so high, that even the mighty broadsides of the Royal Navy would have little chance of destroying it before it could take their lives in trade. To slay the Tarrasque, we determined, we would have to immobilize it, and deal such
If you see that waiting sign, just ignore it. I'm just trying to ignore it.
destruction upon it,
Anyway, back
that
to
it
the
would be
story.
utterly annihilated before it could free itself. We prepared
you're
our trap
never
in the
gonna
fields near
stop him.
Gravesend, a village between Tarascon and Avignon that the Tarrasque had yet to lay waste to. We had judged that the beast stood about 9 feet at the shoulder, 6 feet wide and 30 feet long. We dug a long trench in the field wide and long enough to contain the beast, and deep enough to stop the beast climbing loose before the damage could be done. In the bottom of the pit, we mounted steel rods, sharpened to a fine point, by the hundreds, each tipped with the noxious poison I had acquired in the Orient. Mr. Roosevelt has agreed to act as bait. He will approach the Tarrasque on horseback and attack it with his elephant gun. Once it gives chase, he will lure it to the pit. Providence
Oh,
was
now
standing,
this is gonna
nothing
be-
shall be
so
left of the
everyone's
creature but
gonna be
ash and
running
bone
and
by
screaming.
sundown tomorrow.
Alright!
May 29th, 1883. Success! The plan went off without a hitch. It was afternoon before Mr. Roosevelt could coerce the Tarrasque into pursuing him, but surely enough,
Wow, that guy might be a hero, but then he'll be a villain. They're probably gonna die in 2 minutes.
the reptilian behemoth fell into the pit, impaled upon the spikes. Messrs. Dukov, Harris, and I, lying in wait out of sight, joined Mr. Roosevelt at the pit's edge and unleashed the full fury of our armaments onto it. Our rifles and shotguns, the particle destabilizer, Mr. Dukov's electric rifle, and the pitch-blende gun. The monster let loose a screech from the pits of damnation itself, as bullets and explosives tore its flesh loose, bit by bit, and gelate kerosene burned slowly and stopped it regrowing. By the time the fires had died down, a charred skeleton was all that remained. We have separated the beast's massive skull, blackened and perforated, from what remains of the monster, and a handful of soldiers are hard at work, filling in the pit with earth. Tomorrow we shall...
Okay, if you guys know about SCPs, then you know they did not kill it. They're gonna bring it to their people, and then it'll be their fault for bringing the monster there. Everyone will be running and screaming, "Oh, why?"
bring the skull back to Avignon and collect our reward.
Yeah, right.
May 30th, 1883.
Was it worth it?
We were hailed as heroes by the army when we arrived in Avignon with our prize. In the morning light, the Tarrasque skull seemed whiter than it had the night before, and more charred flesh stuck to it than it had seemed when we dragged it from the pit, though surely it was little more than an illusion. The four of us posed for photographs, and Mr. Dukov asked to have his photograph taken with his head in between the massive jaws of our fallen prey. Imagine our horror when the jaws snapped shut, severing Dukov's head neatly at the shoulders. The skull of the Tarrasque rolled loose from its place on the stage and snapped again, taking another chunk of his body.
Oh my god! That's what I hate. I hate people getting turned to paste. I don't like it.
The soldier screamed and fainted as it seemed to be growing a new coating of flesh and scales over its charred exterior. We watched, shocked, as the honor guards fired a volley at the skull. The chips it took off seemed to replace themselves instantly, and I was dumbfounded as sinew and muscles seemed to spread across the creature's bones and knit into shape. The jaws of the disembodied Tarrasque opened, and it shouted in French. The rest of the Tarrasque, covered in earth and grime, held together by a few lonely strands of muscle, lurched through the square with uncanny speed, trampling men in its path, ignoring gunshot and cannon fire as it made to rejoin its head. Mr. Roosevelt and I had no desire to see what happened next. We retreated into the vault as a blinding light filled the square, and a blistering wind, mightier than the hurricanes of the Caribbean, slammed the door shut and sealed us within. June 13th, 1883.
You dumb sons of
Providence smiled
bitches.
upon us after all in the end. On the morning of the 1st, the vault door opened and I regarded a major of the army and a company of men searching for survivors. At least 10,000 were incinerated when Avignon was consumed by flame. Even those who had survived, I learned, had been burned or blinded, and pitch-blende fever will likely claim many of them in time. We were two of only a handful of witnesses to one of the greatest disasters to strike France in recent memory, and having been at the center of it all, the army regarded us with great suspicion.
Why?
Mr. Roosevelt and I parted ways in Calais. He intends to return to America, he informed me, and pursue a political career. In that, I wish him well. I returned to my house in London this afternoon, and was informed by Deeds that a postcard had arrived for me this morning. The handwriting in the brief unsigned note within resembled that of the strange Englishman who had attended the questionings, whose notes I caught brief glimpses of from time to time. I present that message below.
Oh.
To Lord Theodore Thomas Blackwood, CBE. The Royal Foundation for the Security, Containment and Protection of Anomalous Objects and Phantasmagoria requests a meeting for the purpose of negotiating an alliance favorable to both our parties. Please call any time, excepting Sundays, at number 19 Melbourne Road, Westminster, and ask to speak to Dr. Thursday. Your discretion is requested in this matter.
I have not heard of this foundation before, and I do not know if I intend to take them up on their mysterious overture. Perhaps I shall hear them out, but I have never been one to serve in one man's employ for very long, and I value my freedom as a naturalist and explorer above all else. We shall see.
Yeah, my guess is because he wants revenge against 682. But anyway, that was a good story, don't you admit it? Now, if you have any questions, get some thumbs up, subscribe, and let me know if you want me to react to another one, but I'll do it anyway, because I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!